welcome everyone, and welcome Michael Seibel, CEO of Y Combinator. And
Thanks for having me.
today, so first let's start with the why we're doing this, and at Pi Campus. And so we have been, I've been talking to many hundreds of Italian founders, European founders, and I spent a lot of time in the Bay Area, and I think I found some differences. And the fact that here we have a much lower density of experience in doing startups, and that brings a problem to founders. Now, when they want to start, they don't have many people around that tell them how to do it. And they really have a problem to access information. And sure, the Y Combinator website is full of information. You provide a lot of training material, the Y Combinator school, startup school, the investor school, but still, they don't have someone close to them that is telling them, hey, okay, you can do it, go there. And there is a lot of noise, and unfortunately, people don't recognize the good advice from the bad advice, good deals from bad deals. So my first motivation to do this is trying to bring some information, good information, to these people. Also, science people. I think here in Europe, we're doing a lot of great work in research, like in AI. We are the continent that is publishing more research papers, but those researchers, they don't know what they can do with what they're doing. They don't know a lot about venture capital at all. So there is this complete disconnect between the research world and companies. And so also for them, we're trying to bring some information about the very general idea around Y Combinator. That's the first reason. But the second reason, which is a little bit more personal, over the last 20 years, I think I received much more information. I received more from Y Combinator than what I gave to Y Combinator. Okay, and I have to say, like 18 years ago, Paul Graham was working, before founding YC, was working on Bayesian classifier. And now he helped me with this technology that I use it to build Translated. Okay, and 6 years ago, Michael was coming, visiting here in Italy, and he was becoming partner at YC, and he invited me to my first demo day. Okay, and that really transformed the way I was doing investment. Now we have tens of investment together with YC. Some super successful, the most successful investment we ever with YC, like Boom Supersonic, but also many times, which we love, that also other companies like that we invested in and then went through YC, raised a lot of money, like Green Scooters. And so in one way we co-invest, in another way YC helped a lot in accelerating startups that we were investors. So both for personal reasons, as a kind of give back, I want more people to know about Y Combinator because I hope they will receive also more. And also for practical reason for our community, we need to give more information. And so before we start with YC, Michael, I want to know, how did you get involved in the startup world? So at the beginning, and how did it start for you?
So I was lucky. I didn't know that I wanted to be a startup founder. And my best friend from college is a man named Justin Kahn, and he was actually in the first YC batch in 2005. And when he started his next company after his first one, named Justin TV, he actually recruited me to be a co-founder, and that was in 2006. And so he is really responsible for me being in this space at all.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, and that's, so you was just after college, or did you had some work experience?
This was my second, it was my third job after college, actually,
Okay.
but it was 1 year after graduating.
Good. Super good. So, what is Y Combinator, and what is the right stage to apply to Y Combinator?
So Y Combinator, or we call it YC, is a startup accelerator. And so we work with a batch of about 200 to 250 startups every 6 months. And we help them get their products launched and get them growing. We help them talk to their users and figure out what to prioritize and what not to prioritize. And then at the end of YC, we have a demo day where we help founders raise angel investment and meet investors from all over the world. And the intention of YC was to create another path for people to get access to the startup world. There are a lot of traditional paths based on where you went to school and who you know and who your family members are. We wanted to build a path based on, can you build product? Are you passionate about what you're working on? And are you someone who likes to talk to your customers? And so we built this path where you don't have to have a pitch deck. You don't have to network with us. All you have to do is fill out an application on our website. And the other thing that we were very sensitive to is we don't like the idea that the first real deep conversation you have with an investor is a negotiation on how much they should invest in at what price. So at YC, we have a standard deal, and you know exactly what the investment terms are before you even apply. And so if you like the terms, you apply, you get in, everything is done. If you don't like the terms, don't apply. And so we really just wanted to change how people access the startup world. And now we work with startups both in the US, but all over the world. About 40% of a YC batch is international.
Oh, wow. And so what is the deal then? What are you offering to startup and why they should apply?
So the YC standard deal is that we invest $125,000 US for 7% of the company. And we do this on a post-money safe. And then we have the right to invest pro rata in future rounds. What do you get? So I just described the kind of accelerator portion. That's the 3-month intensive program. But you actually get a lot more. You get this online community named Bookface, which is a community of all 5,000 people who've ever done YC. In that community, you can ask for advice. You can get leads to sell to both YC companies and non-YC companies. There's an investor database with reviews on every investor basically in the world that invests in startups. There are a bunch of exclusive deals where you get discounts on products that you need to make your company successful or free credits. And then we have a variety of programs after the accelerator to help you raise a Series A, help you post product market fit grow, and build your team. And then we also have a job site called Work at a Startup, which helps you recruit software engineers, and a growth fund named YC Continuity that can write larger checks into your company in your Series B, C, D, etc. So one of the models that I've been thinking about a lot for how to describe YC is it's kind of like a Tesla. For most cars you buy, the day you get the car, it's the best it's ever going to be. And every day after that, it gets worse. With the Tesla, every 3 months, your car gets an update. It can do new things. And with YC, every year we want YC to get better so that even people who've done it years ago can get something new out of YC.
Wow. And so when I joined for the demo days, I realized that also that YC was quite different. It looked to me more like a family than a venture fund managed by bankers. So who is running? Please. So
Sorry, I just have a thing going on behind me.
Okay.
Who's running?
But
what?
you have this beautiful background, so we don't see. It could be anything.
It could be anything.
Yeah, a tiger going. Mm-hmm. So we said it looks like more a family. It's not run by bankers. So who is running YC together with you? So.
Yes. So one of the interesting things about YC is that most of us who run it and who advise the companies have not only started startups of our own, but are YC alumni as well. Yeah. And so most people who work at YC are honestly more interested in giving back because YC was their opportunity. It opened the door for them to enter the startup world. And so their primary motivation is to give back and to basically help the next generation of founders. One of the interesting things about YC is because we invest in companies at such an early stage, we have no idea which companies are going to succeed. And we have no idea how long it's going to take. More often it takes way longer. You look at Airbnb as an example, it's taken 12 years for them to IPO. And so a lot of our motivation is not making money. It's too hard when you're interviewing a company to know whether they're going to make money 12 years from now. A lot of our motivation is to work with people who are extremely motivated and technical and try to help them succeed.
Okay, so you have to behave nicely with everybody because you don't know which one will become the next unicorn. But also from the reason why applying. So you have, I don't know, I tried to make a math, but it looks like you're investing in a company that will become a $1 billion company almost each year. So I don't know how many companies you have over $1 billion, but from the age of YC, it looks like you're getting one every year. And you have incredible names. Can you name a few?
Yes, so YC's been around for 15 years, and I think we currently have 30 companies that are worth $1 billion or more.
Oh, twice a year.
So let's see, I'll go through a list of folks that people have probably heard of. So Airbnb, of course.
We know about.
Stripe is another one that's well known. Cruise, which is self-driving car company.
Yes.
DoorDash,
GM
delivery company. Coinbase and Instacart. Dropbox. Ginkgo Bioworks, which is a biotech company. Rappi, which is an on-demand delivery company in Latin America.
Yeah.
Brex, a Reddit credit card company. Reddit, which many people will know. GitLab, which is an open source GitHub competitor. Docker, Twitch, which is a company that I started, and the list keeps going.
Yeah, that's super impressive. That's probably one of the main reasons people should apply. You bring luck.
Fair point.
So, but Michael, as far as I understand, there is many thousands, if not 10,000 companies applying. So what is the math behind? So, if someone is applying, what their chances is getting in? So how many people apply, how many do interview, and how many do you invest in every year?
So while it is challenging to get into YC, what I will say is that anyone can apply. So we have a lot of people who apply. And every batch we will interview approximately 12 to 1,500 companies.
Oh, wow.
And we'll fund somewhere between 200 and 250 companies typically. The applicant pool is all over the map. Sometimes it's closer to 12,000 companies. Sometimes it's closer to 15,000 companies who apply. But what I would say is that sometimes founders, and especially international founders, talk themselves out of applying because they think YC is too hard to get into. And I would encourage you not to do that. I think that there are a lot of myths around what it takes to get into YC, and a lot of them are just plain false. We fund companies that are just getting started, that haven't even incorporated yet. We fund companies that have a couple $1 million of revenue. We fund companies that are doing pure software. We fund companies that are doing biotech and hard tech. Like, there really is no category or stage of company that you wouldn't find in a typical batch of YC. And so I wouldn't use these numbers to discourage yourself. I would say, bring your A game and you should try to get in. And lots of different companies, a wide diversity of companies get in every year.
But also I helped a few companies applying, and the form is extremely straightforward and quick. It can only take, if you're fast, it can only take a few hours to go and you're done, or even less. I mean, if you know what you're doing. So it's probably also it's not a big investment to try at all.
That's the other funny thing. People email me all the time and ask, should I apply? And I'm like, we don't charge money. It's not it's not hard to apply. Like, why not?
True.
If you have a free afternoon, it's probably worth it.
And also, you're very serious and committed. Am I understanding correctly that those 1,000 companies that you invite for the interviews, you pay them the flights, the fare? Is it what?
Well, that's what we used to do before COVID. Yes.
Okay,
so
sure. Now
we used to pay. Yeah. Now we do everything remote, but yeah, we pay for flights, for hotels. So it doesn't cost you any money to interview at YC.
So really anyone can apply. So perfect.
Yeah.
So, so one thing that I think I received a lot of questions when I posted this video is that is YC a good fit for European companies and Italian companies in specific? So, or is just for companies that are in the Bay Area?
You know, I always hate this question because when founders ask me this question, it's evidence that they've done no research, right? Because there's a large number of European companies over many years that have done YC. And so, one thing I'll tell founders out there is, it always feels easier or more convenient to ask a friend something, but man, sometimes you just got to look it up yourself. And if you look it up yourself, if you go to our website, ycombinator.com, you click on the companies list, you can see a link and a list of the companies from everywhere in the world, and you can sort them by where they are in the world. And you can see that, a bunch of companies from everywhere in the world found YC to be a fit. And what's even cooler is that you can reach out and talk to them. So you don't have to talk to your friend who didn't do YC or some random investor to figure out what it's like. Email a founder from your country who's done YC and ask them. And to be honest, more often than not, they'd be happy to respond to you.
Yes, and what I notice is not just that it's easy and they're welcome. Also, for the last 6 years that I've come into Demo Day, the share of international company increased actually, year over year. So
yeah, it's doubled in the last 5 years.
Perfect. So now in the specific this timing here during the pandemic, okay, so you went and you switched to the batch being completely digital, remote. And is this creating a barrier for international company because they cannot travel, or is this creating new opportunities for them?
To be honest, I think if you're an international company, this is probably the best moment for you. The entire Silicon Valley investment community has shifted from wanting to meet founders in person to investing online over Zoom. And so you've never had more access to the Silicon Valley investment community than you do right now. You should certainly take advantage of.
Yeah, I was hoping that answer. Super good. Okay, and about the experience you just had about going digital. So from an investor standpoint, in one side I loved it because the pitches now were shorter, 1 minute. I could do it from Rome. All the other times I had to fly for 1 week, basically, because of the time zone. So now I did it very quickly. I did my investments, super happy. The information was clear. The platform was improved. But so what is going to stay of that experience that you created? And when do you think you're going back to physical?
We will see. We will see. I think that, when surveying founders, the feedback about the remote batch was phenomenal. When looking at some of the challenges of moving to the Bay Area for 3 to 4 months, they're considerable for our founders. And so I think there's a lot we're going to learn. And I imagine post-COVID, YC will look very different than pre-COVID. I can't tell you exactly what's going to stay and what's going to go, but very, very different. Needless to say, I mean, for the last batch that we did completely remote, because we were able to save so much time, we did 50% more office hours with the companies.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, that just had a direct translation into better performance and a better experience for founders. So we'll see. We plan to be remote for the rest of the year, but when things come back to normal, we'll see what new YC looks like.
Good. So to come back to European founders, so is there something they should avoid? Is there a common mistake that they do in the way they create their companies or in the way they do the application that we can share with them?
Yes. So I remember we talked about this 6 years ago in Italy.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. There's almost no specific individual country in Europe that is big enough to support a huge company, that's big enough to support the next Google or Amazon. What makes internet businesses amazing is the fact that they can cross many geographies. And so as the dumb American, I see Europe as one market. And I think to a European who's grown up in Europe, they see Europe as 20 markets. And the truth is closer to me. Unfortunately, it's closer to me. So when you're building your business in Europe, you should be thinking about how much of Europe can you sell to? And when pitching your vision for your business, at a minimum, you should be pitching that we want this to be a product that serves all of Europe. And you don't have to start that way. You can start in the country that you're in, of course, but your vision needs to be beyond the borders of your country. And let's be clear, I know that's harder in Europe. I know that maybe means multiple offices. I know it means supporting more languages faster. I know it's harder, but the bigger the group of people that you go after, the more that investors are excited about the potential for your business. And one of the things that I met when traveling through Europe was too many founders who were too interested in building for just their country. And that doesn't work. So don't do that.
Italy is 2% of the world economy. France is 3%. So it's too small. Very good point. Very good point. And so is there anything also special that they have to do with their own company? So can you invest in companies that are established in every geography, or how will it work?
Yeah, so we typically, and most US investors typically like to invest in Delaware C Corp, so companies that incorporate in the United States. I think that we also invest in, I don't know which other country, but there is a European country that will support incorporation into. But what I've basically noticed is that in the long term, most of the investors you're going to want to pitch, especially in the later stages, are in the United States. Most of the money that flows into the tech ecosystem outside of China flows from the United States. And so it's actually strategic to be incorporated with a parent company in the United States. And then, of course, you're going to have subsidiaries in the various European countries that you're in.
And so can I summarize by saying that they can apply to YC with whatever company they have, right, and in case they get accepted, maybe you will require flip?
Yes, you can apply to come to YC in any setup that you have. We actually have an amazing legal and finance team. And if you get into YC, they will help put you into a format that allows you to be invested in. Okay. So we do not expect you to be a legal expert at all.
Okay, and so that was the common mistake. And is there a common path for the successful application, if there is any?
Yes, I would say a successful application tends to have 5 key components. The first one is that some of the co-founders, if not all of the co-founders, are technical. So the co-founding team can build the product. They don't have to rely on outsourced engineering or a large software team. Number 2, the co-founding team knows each other. They have some previous work or personal relationship. Number 3, we see what we call progress over time. So this is a very specific thing. We want to look at the amount of time you've been working at your startup, and we want to be impressed with how much you've done. Now, you could be working on your startup for a month, and you can get a lot done, and we'll be impressed. You could be working on your startup for 2 years, and you can get a lot done, and we'll be impressed. But needless to say, we will judge a startup that's been working for a month very differently than one that's been working for 2 years. The bar is a lot higher if you've been working on your startup for 2 years. The next thing that we think about is, what do you know about this space that others don't? All too often we meet founders that are going after problems that they don't understand well themselves. And so they find it very, very hard to build something for their customer. And then the last thing is the ability to communicate. So it turns out that as a founding team, if you're reasonably successful, very quickly you go from doing to talking. Very quickly you go from doing to motivating your employees. And so the ability to clearly say what you're doing and why you're doing it is extremely important. So those 5 things are the most important things when applying. I would say that if you nail all 5 of those things, you probably have greater than a 50% chance of getting into a batch. And we say this publicly, yet most YC applications don't do those 5 things.
That looks a great strategy then. It's easy.
Yep,
so I think we're running out of time, and we have just a few questions we can take from the audience that I received. So one is from Giorgio. Giorgio is the founder of Philo, a very successful Italian startup that does location tracking devices. So he wants to know if Y Combinator is a good fit for a European company that would like to enter the US market. So is that this kind of fit?
Yeah, this is what I would say. I don't like classifying Y Combinator that way. I think that a lot of people pitch themselves as like, oh, take money from us because we'll help you enter some market. And I don't think that's a very good investor pitch, to be completely honest. And so, yes, if you want to sell in America, you should consider doing YC. If you don't want to sell into America, you should consider doing YC. What I'll tell you is that Silicon Valley is the most powerful tech ecosystem in the world. No matter where you're doing a startup, there's something you can take from Silicon Valley. Advice, employees, money, customers. There's something you can take, and we can help you take it. And so if you want to come to the Valley for customers, great. But if you want to come for some other reason, we can help too.
Okay. And then we have another question from Giordano, that is the founder of Allelica, a company that applied 3 times to YC. He got interviewed once and is receiving a lot of opportunities and for exit, is doing super well. But they still try to apply every semester. and so he's in the space of genomics. And so Giordano says, I see a trend in health tech where YC is investing a lot in health tech. So do you see these kind of companies from a different perspective? Or is this what we heard apply also to them in the same way? Or there is anything special you want to see in them?
I would say the only other thing that's different about the health tech companies that we fund, and I want to be specific, like the life science companies that are actually doing real science. The only thing that's different is that we tend to want to see some more educational credentials, because in that world, educational credentials are highly valued by investors, by partners, by customers. And so it's helpful for you to also have, a PhD or some experience. Whereas for software companies, we're much more likely to fund people who have absolutely no experience. And so that's the only difference in our criteria. Otherwise, you're right. We fund a lot of life science companies now and healthcare companies, and they're a pleasure to work with.
Super good. So last question, which is the most important, because many people are scared about this. And so they asked me to clarify. So you talk about being ramen profitable. So you say you build a company and you quickly become profitable just a little bit so that you can buy ramen, this inexpensive Japanese food, to survive, okay? And I think the people here completely get the idea of becoming default alive. So the fact that, okay, now you can survive as much as you want. But what they want to know is that, okay, they can do it, but can they replace ramen with spaghetti?
Fair. We're happy for you to eat any pasta you'd like.
Okay, that will be, I think, is the most important things for Italian startups to apply to YC. That was a deal breaker, basically.
I'm glad we cleared it up.
I think this was great, and so now I think we gave a lot of information. But if they have to take an action now, so what is the application for the deadline for the next batch? When can they apply?
So the first thing I want people to understand is that YC is not like a university where if you don't apply by the deadline, you don't get in. We read every application. We read the early applications, the on-time applications, and the late applications. So if you convince yourself to not apply to YC because it's late, then someone else will and they'll get in. We're still doing interviews for the next batch.
So they can apply tomorrow.
You can apply tomorrow. You just go to ycombinator.com. And if you're not ready to apply yet, but you want to learn more about startups, you can always go to Startup School, which is our online class to do startups. There's no application. Anyone can do it. It's online and free. And you can learn all the same advice that we give to YC companies. So if you just go to startupschool.org, you can also start that right now.
Michael, this was great. Thank you so much for your time. And I love the digital batch, but I also hope we will catch up in person.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks
I really
again.
appreciate it.
Bye.
Cheers.